A new year doesn't always arrive with a clean slate. Sometimes it shows up with the same pressure, just less room. Because right now, the most important question in basketball isn't who the best player in the league is, it's who's still allowed to be counted. This season isn't being decided by highlight plays or trophy debates. It's being decided quietly on injury reports, on rest nights, on calendars that don't care how dominant you were when you played. One missed week changes everything. One back-to-back decision tightens the margin. And one number now decides whether an entire season officially exists. As we step into a new year, the league isn't resetting. It's narrowing. Bodies are breaking down. Stars are disappearing for weeks at a time. And the space between doing the right thing and being disqualified has never been thinner. Tonight, we're not talking about who deserves awards. We're talking about what happens when the margin disappears, and how a rule meant to protect the game is quietly reshaping careers, legacies, and memory. I'm Vincent Cooper. This is Round Ball Rants. Let's get into it. Before we talk about rules, thresholds, or eligibility, we have to start with reality, because this season didn't quietly drift into chaos. It arrived there. Right now, across the NBA, injuries aren't isolated incidents. They're not bad luck nights or freak plays you shrug off and move past. They're extended absences, weeks at a time, entire chapters of the season just missing. And when weeks disappear, so does rhythm, so does continuity, so does the version of a season we thought we were watching. This isn't about panic, it's about accumulation. Victor Wembanyama, the most protected, most studied young body the league has ever seen, already losing real developmental time to knee issues. Not just cautionary rest, not just let's be smart, actual games removed from his story this year. And when a season is supposed to be about learning, every missed stretch matters. Nikola Jokic, the standard for reliability in the modern NBA, suddenly unavailable for extended time himself. No drama, no controversy, just the reminder that even the most durable greatness lives on a thin line. One awkward landing, one strain, one calendar shift. And suddenly, the season tightens around you. Joel Embiid remains the same paradox he's always been. Overwhelming dominance when present, constant uncertainty when it comes to availability. Every night feels like a question mark, and every absence quietly chips away at the total, even when the performances can be historic. Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, players whose excellence is unquestioned, but whose seasons now feel fragmented. Not because of effort, not because of desire, but because the body remembers every playoff run, every shortened offseason, every time it was asked to give more than it had. And it's not just stars. Across the league, rotation players are missing months. Bench roles are being rewritten on the fly. Teams aren't building momentum. They're constantly adjusting. Night to night, chemistry never settles. Winning streaks vanish, losing streaks linger longer than they should. Coaches aren't planning for seasons anymore. They're managing survival weeks. Fans aren't circling matchups. They're refreshing the injury reports. And fantasy players are downgrading talent not just because of decline, but because availability has become the most fragile skill in basketball. And slowly, almost quietly, the conversation around the league has shifted. Not who's playing the best basketball, it's who's still standing. That shift matters because it changes how seasons are judged. It changes how stories are told. And it changes how excellence is remembered. In past years, missed time hurt narratives. This year, missed time threatens erasure. Because injuries aren't just impacting wins and losses anymore. They're stacking against something bigger, something permanent. And that's where this season takes a turn. Because now there's a line attached to all of this. Not emotional, not subjective, not forgiving. A number, and whether or not a player crosses it may decide whether their season officially exists at all. There's a reason this season feels unforgiving, because for the first time, the NBA has drawn a hard line between participation and recognition, and it's a line that doesn't move. The rule is simple. To be eligible for the league's major individual awards, MVP, All-NBA, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved, a player must appear in at least 65 games. Not approximate, not proportional, not contextual. 65. The rule doesn't ask how dominant you were when you played. It doesn't ask whether your absence was unavoidable. It doesn't ask who made the decision for you to sit. It only counts appearances. And once you understand that, the injury report stops being informational and it becomes definitive. Because this rule doesn't measure greatness, it measures survival. A player can dominate when available, change games, dictate matchups, anger both ends of the floor, and still be removed from the official story of the season. Not because the impact wasn't real, but because the availability wasn't continuous. This wasn't designed to be cruel. It was designed to restore credibility to awards that had started to feel diluted, to make full seasons matter again, to tell fans that durability is a part of excellence. And that logic holds until you run the numbers. An NBA season is 82 games. The eligibility cutoff allows for 17 missed games. Now factor in the schedule reality. Teams are still playing roughly 14 to 15 back-to-back sets in a season. If a team chooses the most conservative, health-first approach, resting a star for one game of every back-to-back, that decision alone would account for 14 or 15 absences, which means this: before a player rolls an ankle, before a knee strain, before illness, before precautionary rest, they're already down to 3 games of margin. 3. That's not flexibility, and that's not load management. That's an assumption of perfect health in a league that hasn't seen it in years. And this is where the rule stops being neutral, because now rest isn't just a strategy, it's a risk. Caution isn't just smart, it's costly. One minor injury no longer changes a week. It can erase an entire season from eligibility. So while the league has reduced back-to-backs to protect bodies, the award structure quietly pressures teams to do the opposite. It creates a tension where health and recognition are no longer aligned. This season isn't asking who played the best basketball. It's asking who stayed intact long enough to be counted. And whether that's fair or not, that isn't the question. Because the rule doesn't argue. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't explain itself. It just counts. And when the totals are finalized, some of the most meaningful seasons that we watched won't exist on the award list at all. Not because they weren't worthy, but because they ran out of room. If this conversation resonates with you, if you enjoy sitting with the game beyond the box score, take a second to like the episode and follow the show wherever you're listening. It helps more than you think, and it keeps this space growing. This is Round Ball Rants. Let's keep moving. This is the part of the season that doesn't announce itself. There's no headline for it, no press release, no definitive moment where a season officially slips away. It just tightens, quietly, one missed night at a time. Right now, there's a group of players whose years aren't being judged by performance anymore. They're being judged by their margin. They're still eligible, still brilliant, still central to everything that their teams do, but they're running out of room. Joel Embiid is the clearest example. When he plays, he's still one of the most dominant forces in basketball. The problem isn't how high the ceiling is, it's how quickly the floor is disappearing. Every absence carries more weight now, not because his impact fades, but because the math doesn't forgive pauses. Nikola Jokic has built his reputation on reliability, on showing up, on anchoring a season from opening night through spring. But even that standard isn't immune. A knee issue, a few weeks gone, and suddenly a season that once felt automatic has to be monitored, not celebrated, but tracked. Then there are players whose value lives on the defensive end, where recognition already comes with even less margin. Anthony Davis is still one of the most impactful defenders in the league. He changes coverages, he erases mistakes, but his eligibility line is always tight. One stretch of missed games doesn't just hurt his case, it can erase it altogether. Bam Adebayo lives in a similar space. His importance to Miami isn't measured in box scores, and that means that the 65-game threshold matters even more. If he doesn't qualify, the season doesn't just lose an award, it loses acknowledgement. And then there are the players teams are actively trying to protect. Victor Wembanyama isn't being managed because of weakness. He's being managed because of his importance. The Spurs are thinking in years, not months. But the rule isn't patient. Every stretch of missed time compresses the season until development and recognition are no longer aligned. Zion Williamson exists in that same tension. His explosiveness demands care. His availability determines everything. And under this structure, the space between smart management and disqualification, it's almost non-existent. And then finally, there are veterans who live in this space every year now. Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, their greatness isn't questioned. Their seasons are planned differently, and that planning has consequences now. Every rest night is borrowed from the same shrinking allowance. Every decision echoes months later. This isn't about blame. These players aren't chasing shortcuts. They're not avoiding the game. They're navigating the season where one more absence can change how an entire year is remembered. They're not disqualified. They're just running out of time. And when we talk about awards at the end of the season, that distinction is going to matter, because some of the best basketball we watched will come from players who never crossed the line. This episode has been about margins, about what it takes to stay available, to stay present, to stay in the game when the season gets long. And that idea doesn't stop when the lights go off. Energy matters. Not the kind that spikes and crashes, but the kind that actually lasts. That's why Round Ball Rants is partnered with Dubby. Dubby isn't about burning you out. It's about giving you clean, focused energy that lets you stay locked in. Whether you're watching late games, editing content, grinding through work, or just trying to make it through a long day without hitting a wall. No sugar crash, no jittery edge. Just steady fuel that keeps you present instead of spent. Because just like the players we talked about tonight, staying in the game isn't about pushing harder. It's about managing what you have. If you've been thinking about trying Dubby, this is a good time to do it. Use our code RoundBallRants at checkout and save on your order. Don't trade your energy for anything less than clean. When the season ends, the record books will feel clean. They always do. They'll give us winners, they'll give us lists, they'll give us a sense of order, like everything that mattered fit neatly inside of a column. But that's not how this season actually lived. This season lived in margins, in decisions, in bodies that didn't cooperate with calendars. It lived in nights missed not because someone didn't want to play, but because they couldn't afford to lose something bigger. Health, longevity, the future. And none of that shows up next to a name. The awards will tell us who qualified. They won't tell us who endured. They won't tell us who played knowing the margin was already gone. They won't tell us who had to choose between being available today and being whole tomorrow. Because systems like clean endings. Life rarely offers them. Some seasons don't end with trophies. Some seasons end with restraint, with responsibility, with the understanding that chasing everything right now can cost you so much more later. And that doesn't make those seasons failures, it makes them honest. There's a difference between being unrecognized and being unworthy. And this season reminds us how often those two get confused. How easily we let numbers replace nuance. How quickly we forget that presence isn't the same as impact. Sometimes, the most meaningful work, it happens without ceremony. Sometimes the effort doesn't come with the applause. Sometimes, the story that mattered most won't be the one that's officially remembered. And that's not just basketball. That's life. So if this season feels heavy, if it feels unforgiving, maybe that's because it's asking us to look a little deeper. To remember that worth isn't decided by thresholds, and meaning isn't erased just because it doesn't get documented. What you give still counts, even when it isn't counted. I'm Vincent Cooper. This was Round Ball Rants. And remember, it's not just basketball, it's therapy with a bounce.